Which is better, the BLU G9 Pro or the iPhone 11? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. Hi everyone, this is Kevin here, coming at you with my comparison between the BLU G9 Pro and iPhone 11. Now there's no doubt that the iPhone 11 is a lot more expensive, coming in at $699 versus just $179 for the BLU G9 Pro. But I want this video to be an opportunity for you to be able to compare a budget flagship like the G9 Pro to the iPhone 11 to see if it's really even worth the extra money for an iPhone 11. And I think by the time we're done with this video, you will be surprised at the large amount of value that you'll really get from the G9 Pro for a significantly cheaper price tag. Now, the BLU G9 Pro was originally offered at $199, but since then has had a price reduction to $179.99. And it's possible that from the time of me making this video, the price will go down even more. So definitely take a look at the link in the video description to see the current price for this device on Amazon. And the base price of the iPhone 11 is $699, and that's this one. So this is the iPhone 11 in product red. So this is very new to the market. It supports all 4 major US carriers. It's factory unlocked, of course. And for the BLU G9 Pro, it is factory unlocked as well, but it is limited to GSM carriers like AT&T and T-Mobile, as well as smaller carriers like Metro by T-Mobile, Cricket, and Straight Talk. Now, the BLU G9 Pro features a 6.3-inch display at 1080p with a 19.5:9 aspect ratio. So you can probably see here that the phone does have a very clear and good-looking display with nice and bright colors. Now, the iPhone 11 features a smaller display at 6.1 inches and features a resolution of 828 by 1792, and it features a 19.5:9 aspect ratio. But as you can see, holding these two devices up next to each other with the bases of the two lined up, there's no doubt that the BLU G9 Pro is the larger phone of the two. Another major difference, which I'm sure you've already noticed, is up top. Now, both phones do feature notches on the top, but the BLU G9 Pro has a teardrop notch design versus the significantly wider notch on the iPhone 11. Now, I personally am a bigger fan of the teardrop design. I feel like it's a good compromise because even though it does have a notch, that notch really doesn't get in the way of anything because you have plenty of room for your notification icons and your system status icons. But with the iPhone 11, you don't even get enough room for a battery percentage. That's how large this notch is. And the notch is the same size as what we saw with last year's phones, such as the iPhone XR. Then on the bottom here, we have a little bit of a thicker chin on the BLU G9 Pro compared to the iPhone 11, which has a pretty consistent bezel width going around all sides of the device. But even though the iPhone 11 does have a lower resolution display, the display itself is nice and bright and clear. I think I do personally prefer the display on the BLU G9 Pro, that's for sure, but the iPhone 11 certainly does not have a bad display. Now, up top here, we have front-facing cameras on both devices, with the BLU G9 Pro having a 24-megapixel front-facing camera. Now, definitely go over to my full video review of the G9 Pro to see photo and video quality samples from all of the cameras. And with the iPhone 11, we get a 12-megapixel front-facing camera. Now, video recording with the front-facing camera on the BLU G9 Pro maxes out at 1080p at 30 frames per second. But one of the new things with the iPhone 11 is that the front-facing camera can actually record videos in 4K at 60 frames per second. So pretty impressive. Now, the BLU G9 Pro features 128 gigabytes of internal storage with SD card expansion. And the iPhone 11 comes in a variety of different storage capacities, but this base model at $699 comes with 64 gigs of internal storage with no SD card slot. So you're getting double the amount of internal storage with the BLU G9 Pro. Now, both devices actually feature wireless charging. It's actually a really big surprise to see that we do get wireless charging with the G9 Pro, considering that even the OnePlus 7 Pro, which is much more expensive than this, does not have wireless charging. But I'm a big fan of wireless charging. I used it with both devices, and it has worked out really well. Now, with the BLU G9 Pro, we do get a fingerprint sensor on the back, which works really well, nice and quick, and conveniently placed there. And with the iPhone 11, there is no fingerprint sensor, but we do get Face ID, which is a pretty advanced face unlocking method. So it's kind of hard to do it with the camera in the way, but it does unlock with my face, and it is nice and reliable. Even in dark environments, I have no issue with unlocking the phone. Now, both devices feature very good cameras. With the BLU G9 Pro, we have a triple AI camera setup, with a 20 megapixel night mode camera, a 16 megapixel main camera, and a 5 megapixel depth sensing camera to assist with the portrait mode. Now with the iPhone 11, we have a dual camera setup with both cameras being 12 megapixels. The first camera is just the standard camera on the phone, but the second camera is actually an ultra wide angle camera. So this device does have the ability to take wide angle photos, which is something I actually like a lot, and I wish that the BLU G9 Pro had one of these three cameras be a wide angle camera. So that's probably one of the things that I really wish this device had that it doesn't have. Now with both phones, you're getting portrait mode with the front and rear cameras, and it does work very well. Both phones feature 4 gigabytes of RAM. Now I did run an Antutu benchmark on both devices, so you can compare the scores here. Now with the BLU G9 Pro, we have a score of 139,654, and with the iPhone 11, we have a score of 451,115. So definitely a significantly higher score with the iPhone 11, and you can see especially for the CPU, we're getting a much higher score with the 11. Now the BLU G9 Pro features the MediaTek Helio P60 processor, which is actually a very decent processor from MediaTek, and the iPhone 11 features Apple's latest and greatest A13 Bionic processor. Now video recording for the rear cameras maxes out on the G9 Pro at 1080p at 30 frames per second, and with the iPhone 11 we're getting 4K at 60 frames per second. The BLU G9 Pro features a 4,000 mAh internal battery, and with the iPhone 11, we get a smaller battery capacity with 3,110 mAh. So we get 890 mAh less of capacity with the iPhone 11. Now the BLU G9 Pro runs Android 9 Pie, and you get a stock experience with the device. I believe BLU has pledged to eventually update the phone to Android 10, which is another great bonus there. And with the iPhone 11, we're getting iOS 13. From my experience, both operating systems perform very well on both devices, so if you want to get a great Android experience, go with the BLU G9 Pro, and if you want a good iOS experience, go with the iPhone 11. Now that we've gone over the specifications of these two devices, let's take a closer look at the hardware. Now I already talked about the front here quite a bit. We do get a larger display with the BLU G9 Pro at 6.3 inches versus 6.1 inches with the iPhone 11. But another thing too to keep in mind is that with the significantly smaller notch with the G9 Pro, we get even more screen real estate to use. Now taking a look at the left side of both devices here, on the G9 Pro we have the slot for the microSD card and SIM card, and that's it. We also have a plastic band running around the phone, which still does feel decently premium even though it's not metal. With the iPhone 11, we have a metal band running around the device that certainly is premium. We have the mute switch, and we have the volume button. And then on the right side of the two devices, on the G9 Pro, we have the volume button and we have the power button. And on the iPhone 11, we just have the power button, which is also the Siri button. Then on the top of the two devices, on the BLU G9 Pro, we have the noise canceling microphone and nothing on the iPhone 11. And then on the bottom of the two devices, on the BLU G9 Pro, we have the 3.5mm headphone jack, the microphone, the USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and we have the speaker. Then on the iPhone 11, we have the speaker, we have the lightning port for charging and data transfer, and we have the microphone. Now I really wish the iPhone 11 had a headphone jack, because I think that'd be really nice to have, but especially I wish this phone had a USB-C port, because really, at this point, it's sad that Apple hasn't put the USB-C port onto their phones, especially since some of the iPad Pros have USB-C, but I think for 2020, so the next generation of iPhones, we will finally see USB-C. But this budget phone from BLU has already beaten Apple to having USB-C. Let's now do a speed test comparison between these two devices. Let's start by pulling up the camera app. So 1, 2, 3, go. And definitely a lot quicker on the iPhone 11, but the BLU G9 Pro certainly wasn't too slow. Let's now pull up the web browsers on both phones, and even though the iPhone can run Chrome, I'm going to go with the default browsers on the two devices. So 1, 2, 3. And it was near instant on the iPhone 11 despite me closing out the application before pulling it up. And it was still quick on the BLU G9 Pro, no doubt about it, but a little bit behind. Let's now go to yahoo.com. 1, 2, 3, go. And actually for this, it looks like the G9 Pro was first to pull up Yahoo. So that's very impressive. Let's go to engadget.com. 1, 2, 3, go. And it looks like the iPhone 11 was a lot quicker at pulling up Engadget. But let's try scrolling on both phones. So pretty smooth on the BLU G9 Pro, and silky smooth on the iPhone 11. Definitely a little bit smoother on the iPhone 11 in comparison to the BLU G9 Pro. But I think both devices will give you a good web browsing experience. Certainly no doubt that all the content on the BLU G9 Pro shows up a lot larger on the device compared to the iPhone 11, partially because of the better resolution and also because of the larger display size. Let's now go to this link right here. 1, 2, 3, go. And a little bit quicker on the iPhone 11. Let's now do some zooming. Very smooth on the BLU G9 Pro. And on the iPhone 11, very smooth zooming as well. But you can see here that pretty much with the BLU G9 Pro, you are really getting a budget flagship experience because the phone does run like decently smooth. And really, when comparing the BLU G9 Pro to the iPhone 11, don't know if it's really worth the extra money for the iPhone 11. I mean, if you really want to get the iOS experience, then I suppose this is the way to go. But certainly the BLU G9 Pro does not do a bad job at keeping up with the iPhone 11 despite its significantly lower price tag. So I'm really interested to know what you think. I definitely know that the majority of the people that watch my videos are Android fans and not really a big fan of iOS. But for the hardcore Android fans out there, I think sometimes they need a reminder of how their favorite devices compare to one of the latest and greatest phones from Apple. And as you can see here, I feel like the BLU G9 Pro really does a nice job at keeping up. No doubt about that. And this phone is significantly cheaper too than a flagship device that runs Android, such as the Galaxy S10 or Note 10 or even the OnePlus 7 Pro. So let me know what you think of the BLU G9 Pro and the iPhone 11. Let me know which device you would buy if you had to buy one of them. And I will see you in the next video.